The Marshall-Lerner condition, MLC, is an economic principle that determines whether a depreciation or devaluation of a country's currency will improve its balance of trade, specifically, its current account. Intuitively, when a country's currency depreciates, 1. Exports become cheaper for foreign buyers. 2. Imports become more expensive for domestic buyers. This should in theory lead to an increase in the quantity of exports demanded by foreigners, a decrease in the quantity of imports demanded by domestic residents. However, the value of trade, exports minus imports, depends on both the quantity change, the volume effect, and the price change, the price effect. The condition. The MLC states that a currency depreciation will improve the trade balance only if the sum of the absolute values of the price elasticity of demand (PED) for exports and the PED for imports is greater than 1. Intuitive explanation. The MLC is all about whether the volume effect is strong enough to outweigh the initial price effect. Initial price effect. Immediately after depreciation, imports become more expensive for the same quantity imported. This tends to worsen the trade balance. Volume effect. Over time, people respond to the new prices. The increase in export revenue from selling more cheaper exports and the decrease in import spending from buying fewer, more expensive imports must be large enough to compensate for the initial price effect. This requires demand to be elastic, responsive to price changes. Scenario: export PED left _x right, import PED left _m right, sum left _x right plus left _m right, result of depreciation. MLC met. Elastic, greater than 0.5, greater than 1, trade balance improves, MLC not met. Trade balance improves, MLC not met. Trade balance worsens. Suitable example. Imagine the currency of country A dollar, depreciates by 10%. 1. MLC is met, elastic demand. PED _exports equals 0.8, PED _imports equals 0.4. Sum equals 0.8 plus 0.4 equals 1.2, greater than 1 MLC is met. Intuition. The 10% fall in the price of A's exports leads to an 8% increase in the quantity of exports demanded, 10% times 0.8. The 10% rise in the price of imports leads to a 4% fall in the quantity of imports demanded, 10% times 0.4. Since the increase in the volume of exports, 8% is substantial, and the decrease in the volume of imports, 4% helps, the overall increase in export revenue and decrease in import spending is greater than the initial worsening caused by the price effect. The trade balance improves. 2. MLC is not met, inelastic demand. PED _exports equals 0.2, PED _imports equals 0.3. Sum equals 0.2 plus 0.3 equals 0.5, less than 1 MLC is not met. Intuition. The 10% fall in the price of A's exports leads to only a 2% increase in the quantity of exports demanded, 10% times 0.2. The 10% rise in the price of imports leads to only a 3% fall in the quantity of imports demanded, 10% times 0.3. Because demand is very inelastic, the quantities barely change. The initial price effect, paying a much higher price for nearly the same amount of imports, dominates the volume effect, and the trade balance worsens, or deteriorates further. The MLC often links to the J-curve effect because, in the short run, demand for trade is often inelastic as contracts are fixed, and consumers' firms need time to switch suppliers. This means the trade balance initially worsens, MLC not met, before improving in the long run as demand becomes more elastic, MLC met, forming the shape of a J on a graph of the trade balance over time.